It may be hard to imagine that someone with 4.2 million in assets could ever have a hard time retiring. But let's look at that assumption more closely. Without careful planning, almost anyone can run into financial trouble over the long term. Let's look at how we help clients strategize for retirement success. Hello everybody, my name is Jeremy Curtis. I am a co-founder and advanced planning strategist here at Lightstone Wealth Planning Solutions. I have a JD, a master's in financial planning, and am a certified financial planning professional. Today we'll be talking about advanced planning strategies in the area of retirement. We are going to talk about a case study for a hypothetical family that we will call the Lightstone family, Jim and Lynn Lightstone. In this video, we'll look at how much it takes to be able to retire, how to model if you'll run out of retirement dollars, or in other words, if your money will run out before you do during retirement, and how important decisions like when to take your Social Security or when your spouse starts Social Security can have a big impact on your plan. We'll also look at what factors go into when you'll be able to actually know that you can retire. So let's kind of review some of the basic facts of the case that we're going to be using as our case study, our hypothetical for the Lightstone family here. Basically, we have two clients, Jim and Lynn. Their monthly spend is about $16,000 a month. That's about $192,000 per year. They are concerned about paying some real estate capital gains taxes on a property that they own. Jim is age 48. Lynn is age 46. They'd like to retire in 10 years if they could, so maybe a little bit more, a little earlier than traditional retirement ages at ages 58 and 56 respectively, if possible. They're currently earning about $250,000 a year as their earned income with a $50,000 rental income stream on their rental property. And their assets are as follows. They basically have about $2.8 million in commercial real estate, highly appreciated from when they bought it many years ago, about 10 to 12 years ago. They have $750,000 in liquid financial assets, about $550,000 in a brokerage account, $400,000 of which is in stocks and bonds, $150,000 of which is in cash, and then they've got an additional $200,000 in a qualified plan for Jim. In addition to that $750,000 of financial assets, they have a $550,000 home, a personal residence, and another $100,000 in cash sitting in checking and banking accounts. The big question here is when can they retire? But we want to explore kind of an interesting perspective here. For most of those of you who may be tuning in who are kind of in that retirement space, maybe you're already retired or you're approaching or at least thinking ahead about retirement down the road, you may be thinking, how much do I need? Well, today we're going to explore a really interesting situation. When is $4.2 million worth of assets not enough to retire? And that depends on a lot of different factors. So the scenario we just described with Jim and Lynn Lightstone, again, our hypothetical, our case study here, they have $4.2 million in assets. Their net worth is a little bit lower than that because of a mortgage that they have on their commercial property. But this is what we're going to explore today a little bit. To provide some context, at Lightstone Wealth Planning Solutions, we focus on 5 primary important areas of planning. Central to everything is a customized and coordinated financial plan personalized to your needs. That's the circle in the middle. This financial plan is a projection of your cash flows, your needs, your spending. It ties in your assets, economic factors, projections on things like inflation rates and interest rates and returns on investments, etc. And then surrounding that central hub or that central chassis of your plan, we also focus on 4 important deep dive planning areas where we have advanced expertise. And those areas are taxation, protection, estate planning, and investments. Today, we want to focus primarily on some of the factors related to the centralized financial plan, this customized plan that is a projection of your goals, your objectives, and in this case, the Lightstone family, our hypothetical family's scenario and their needs. So imagine that these clients, the Lightstone family, Jim and Lynn, come into Lightstone. They want to visit with us. They sit down with us, and we have a discussion. And they say, look, I've got about $4.2 million in assets. Can I retire? And if so, how early? And will I run out of money? And how much can I spend? These are common questions for a lot of people who are approaching retirement. Well, the Lightstone family needs a plan. So we might ask them as part of our data gathering process and as part of our conversations with them prior to their decision to decide to hire us. We may ask things about them, their ages and their retirement target ages. In other words, kind of what's their runway look like. We may also ask questions about their current income sources and whether they have any income sources that flow over into retirement, or if these are all income sources that sort of dry up when they decide to hang up their cleats for the last time and decide that they're done, in the rat race. Other questions we'd want to know about is, are they currently saving? What are you doing right now to set assets aside? Not only what do you have right now, but what are you doing right now to contribute towards your retirement so that your future self can look back and thank your present? And that's where we dive a little bit more into, what does your balance sheet look like? What are your financial assets? Do you have any real estate? Do you own a business? Do you have any other income streams that you could kind of passively glean income from during retirement, or that you might decide to look at as an opportunity to liquidate, to sell as part of your retirement? And how much are you spending? What does your retirement income need look like in the future? So part of this is a discussion about what are you spending today and which of those expenses may carry over. How does that morph and change when you move into retirement as your spending goals shift and change? Maybe there's some expenses that go up in retirement because you want to travel more or you have different types of goals. And maybe there's some things that go down or go away or change. Maybe if you're paying down a home, paying down debt right now, maybe some of those things could be paid off before you get to retirement, and might help to kind of all fold into this discussion of what you need in your plan to be able to model out your cash flow and retirement needs. All right, well, the Lightstone family has provided us with their data. We've asked them some questions. We understand a little bit more about their goals and concerns, and we've started to build out one of the components of their plan, the actual financial projections that we will utilize to help make some important financial decisions and to model out the likelihood of success of accomplishing their goals. The first thing we would show the Lightstone family, our hypothetical family here, is their balance sheet. This is where we'd highlight a summary, sort of a consolidated summary of the assets and liabilities that they have. As you can see, everything's kind of itemized here. Let me show you a view that is a little bit more visual. This is on the left, the assets that they have. This shows that they have 4.2 million in total assets. The red bar represents the liabilities. This is their $405,560 mortgage that they have on their commercial rental property that's worth $2.8 million. And then we have over here their net worth of about 3.8 million. So $3,794,440 is their current net worth. And you can see the details reflected down here below. So one thing to keep in mind here, they have invested assets of $750,000. They've got some cash in the bank. Most of their net worth is tied up in their home, which is worth about $550,000, and their commercial rental property, which is worth $2.8 million in today's market, and that gives them a total asset value of 4.2 million. And then again, we already highlighted the mortgage they have on the commercial property over here. All right, let's take a look now at the retirement tab of our planning platform. And what I want to point out here is that what we have on the right is the current plan, and on the left is the proposed plan for Jim and Lynn Lightstone. As things stand today, the probability of success that is being statistically projected for them accomplishing their goals to their full life expectancy is sitting at 0, even though they've got $4.2 million in assets. And we'll break that down here a little bit more in a moment. Okay, so let's take a look at the confidence projections, or the likelihood of success projections, that we have statistically modeled here using Monte Carlo analysis. The way this works is we take a Monte Carlo analysis tool and we run 1,000 different iterations, 1,000 different repetitions of high and low returns based on sort of a statistical probability of those returns occurring. In other words, in a really far out chance, if the returns were just outstanding forever, that would be the highest possible projection. And in the really far out chance that they had just terrible portfolio returns over an extended period of time, that would be the worst possible scenario. And we run 1,000 of these scenarios to see what percentage of those scenarios fall in a confidence level that we're comfortable with. In other words, what's the likelihood of them accomplishing all of their financial goals and not running out of money? What you can see visualized on the screen here is that as we move from their current ages over here on the left to 10 years out where they retire, there's a definite inflection point where even in a really good scenario, that's what this top part of the chart would represent. They could have, up to $1 million or $2.2 million of investment assets, where right now they have $750,000. And in some of the worst case return scenarios, they would have somewhere in the 700,000s of assets in their investment accounts starting at retirement. So right here in the middle, this is sort of the median return, this dark purple line. So let's just follow that. 10 years out, let's say they retire as planned, they spend as planned, and what would happen is they'd basically burn through all of their assets and would run out of money, based on our statistical Monte Carlo projections here, somewhere between age 61, basically 4 years after retirement, to, in the best case scenario, about age 70. What we're projecting for them is that they live up to about age 92. So we like to push our our longevity projections out into the early 90s. There's a high likelihood that at least one of the two spouses is going to live, a long time into the future, and we don't want to take the risk of modeling them basically dying in the short term when there's a chance that, one or both of them could live long and healthy lives. So how do we increase the probability of success in their proposed plan? Let's look at several different steps they could take to improve the outcome and the probability of success in achieving their financial goals. Let's scroll down here a little bit and we'll take a look at some different strategies that we can implement. The first thing I would suggest is, if we go down here to the bottom, we have this property we're calling J&L Commercial Real Estate. This is the commercial rental property that they own. And currently, they're concerned about paying capital gains. So they just had in their mind, well, it's generating some income for us. Let's just hold this for our entire lives. And when we die, we'll give it to the kids. And then we don't ever have to sell it and, realize a capital gain. But in their case, they don't have enough other assets to fund their retirement. So one of the first things that we would recommend is at least to look at the impact of selling this property and recognizing they're going to pay some capital gains upon doing that, but at the time of their retirement, and let's see what that does. So let's say we propose using this asset as part of what they'll use to fund their retirement. Well, that moved us from a 0% probability of success to now having a 25% probability of success. Let's see what else we could do that might help them to improve their statistical projection of accomplishing their retirement goals. I think the next thing I would suggest is I would say, look, they want to retire in 10 years, and that was kind of a loose goal for them. It was more like, yeah, it'd be nice to retire early if we can. Let's just look at what that might look like. Well, in their case, retiring in 10 years is probably not a good idea. They are 48 and 46 right now. If they retire in 10 years at age 58 and 56, that's probably not going to help them out a whole lot. So I'm going to suggest that they push that retirement back maybe just 4 years for each of them. So let's just see what that looks like if they retire at ages 62 for Jim and age 60 for Lynn. And let's see what that does. So we'll refresh. And that bumped our probability of success up a little bit more to 52%. So we're getting a little bit closer to an area or a range of probabilities or likelihoods of not running out of money that we're more comfortable with. Let's take a look at some other things they could do. The next thing I would always recommend is looking at their Social Security claiming strategy. Right now, they are both planning to take Social Security starting at their full retirement age, which for each of them is age 67. So I'm going to go up here and we'll take a look at the Social Security tab on our planning platform. And you can see the gray bars represent their current strategy of both of them claiming Social Security starting at each of their ages 67, which is their full retirement age, as opposed to the purple bar strategy, which is an optimized strategy, where we would recommend that Lynn apply for her spousal benefit starting at full retirement age of 67, and Jim, that we would recommend that he apply for his Social Security benefit at the latest possible date, starting at age 70, because there's a large increase annually in that postponed Social Security benefit, and that gives them the best outcome from a cash flow standpoint. Actually would produce $287,000 more in projected Social Security dollars. Now, does that move the needle hugely for Jim and Lynn? Well, let's take a look. So right now they've got a 52% probability of success. We're going to optimize to try to create a little bit more Social Security income for Jim and Lynn. Let's refresh that and see what that looks like. And it didn't change the probability of success a whole lot. So it moved the needle dollar-wise a little bit, but not so much that it actually changes their probability of success. That's still probably a good thing for them to consider doing, but we want to find something that's going to make a bigger impact to their financial future. So what might we look at next? Probably the next thing I would suggest is spending. I'd say right now they're spending almost everything they earn. They have $250,000 of earned income, $50,000 of rental income every year, and they are spending about $16,000 a month which, if I'm remembering and doing my math here right, is about an annual spend of $192,000, which is most of their after-tax income. So what I would suggest here is, look, you guys really need to dial back your spending a little bit. We're not going to impoverish you, but let's take a look at reducing pre-retirement living expenses from $16,000 in their current scenario down to $13,000. And let's take that additional $3,000 of savings and actually save that for the future instead of spending all those dollars. And just even that one little move. Could you save more? Yeah, if you can, you probably should. They should save significantly more. But let's just take a look at that one move of reducing spending from 16,000 to 13,000 and saving the delta, saving the difference. And then let's project their retirement expenses to be that same level, about $13,000. And all of these expenses are adjusted for inflation annually, but this is in today's dollars. So let's just see what that does to their probability of success. And that made a huge difference. So that took them from being in the 50s all the way up to 91% probability of accomplishing all of their financial goals. Just that one move of postponing retirement, lowering expenses, and saving the delta, that could save them, significant retirement dollars and makes it much more likely that they will achieve all of their financial goals and objectives. The one last thing that we might want to take a look at here is how they're spending their money in retirement. Right now, we're projecting that they'll just spend an inflation adjusted amount every year. In other words, as inflation goes up, we have an inflation metric in here so that every year, I think we set it at 3% in this scenario, their spending will go up every year by 3% in retirement. What if we change that to say, look, retirement and the economy, these are dynamic things. It's not just static. No one's going to say you have to spend this amount every year. What if we adjusted this to use a strategy that we call a guardrails strategy? What would that do to their probability of success? So before I explain what that is, let's just refresh here. And that takes them from 91% all the way up to a 98% probability of success, which is significantly higher. So how does that guardrails strategy actually work? What does that even mean? Well, the guardrails strategy, basically, in short, it says when the economy is doing poorly or when your investment portfolio is down, don't spend so much. In other words, we may project that you have a certain spend every year and we're adjusting that for inflation. But if your portfolio is down a certain amount, then we're going to suggest that you not increase your spending. We're not saying necessarily don't spend anything, but don't increase the spending that year. The other thing we would say is if there's an even more significant change in your portfolio value, then maybe we would say in that case, in those years, the portfolio is down significantly, then probably we'd say you need to spend a little bit less that year. So we might say that year, let's just reduce spending by 10%. Then we also have what we think of as kind of a prosperity rule here, where we say if the portfolio is up above a certain metric, then we would say then you have permission in that year to emotionally feel like you can give yourself permission to spend up to 10% more than you normally would in that given year. So basically what this is saying is modulate your spending according to how the portfolio is doing and according to what's going on in the marketplace. You don't have to just spend this fixed dollar amount every year. But in a bad year, spend less. In a good market year, you can spend a little bit more. Don't go crazy. Still keep it within boundaries. Still follow your plan. But that will give you a very high probability of not running out of money and responding dynamically to what you see going on around you in the marketplace. The last thing I want to take a brief look at here is the comparisons tab. Basically, what we see projected out here is a comparison in blue of the current plan and in green, the proposed plan. And we can look at several different things. We can show that the proposed plan has 14 million more in ending assets than the current plan. That's kind of the projected performance of making these changes. And this is basically showing invested assets. So this takes their investment balance from a lower level to a very high level. You can see a spike here in the green chart here. This is when they sold their rental property and invested the proceeds into an investment portfolio instead of keeping it all tied up in illiquid real estate. Let's look at what the net worth looks like. So again, net worth, you can see a significant change and a positive shift in net worth. And the original plan, the current plan, if they didn't sell that rental property, even if they ran out of money, liquid assets, and couldn't fund their lifestyle anymore, they still have the rental property throughout the remainder of their life. So that's where you see the blue being kind of constant there. But you see a much greater performance in their overall wealth for their family by turning some of that those dollars into liquid dollars and investing them over the long term, at least based on our current projections. Let's look at taxes just briefly. It's interesting. You see a really high spike here in taxes, basically a huge tax year at age 62, at the age of retirement, basically in our proposed plan. Why does that happen? Because we're basically saying when you get to retirement, sell the rental property. So you can hang on to it now, and then when you reach retirement, you can sell it. You'll take a huge tax hit that year, pay a bunch of taxes, but then after that, you can reinvest those dollars in a much more tax efficient manner. And over the long haul, you'll have a much better financial performance and economic performance to your plan and a much higher probability of success in achieving your goals, in spite of the fact that you do have to eat a big chunk of taxes up front. So basically what we're showing here is that when they reach retirement under the proposed plan, they'll have, this is just their retirement, or excuse me, their investment assets. They'll have more in investment assets even without selling the rental property than they would otherwise. And what does that come from? Well, largely that comes from the fact that we're showing them having 4 more years of growth, postponing retirement for 4 years, and simultaneously contributing additional assets that they have siphoned off of their spend, lowering their spending amount down to save and invest more of those assets over the next several years leading up to retirement, as well as postponing the date of retirement by an additional 4 years, which gives them between now and then about 14 years of timeline to continue growing those assets and contributing over time, which shows a much higher proposed retirement amount under the plan that we're recommending that they follow. All right, well, let's wrap up with just a few takeaway lessons. I think the first one here is that it's not just how much you have that matters, it's also how much you spend, and when and how you spend can make a huge difference. Another big lesson that I think we can glean from our case study here with the Lightstone family, with Jim and Lynn, is that many factors are important in retirement planning, in overall financial planning, in estimating and projecting the likelihood of success of accomplishing all of your goals. These factors all matter. The type of assets that you have, the liquidity level that you have, the taxes and Social Security and inflation environments that you find yourself in, market returns, and also let's not forget your live behavior and decisions in response to market environment changes. All of these things can have an enormous impact on your success in achieving your retirement and financial goals. We invite you to subscribe to our channel for more valuable strategies. Also, ask yourself, who do I know that this could help? And learn more about Lightstone and schedule a free 30-minute introductory call at www.lightstoneplanning.com.